Listen, I need you to understand something about my life. I'm not clumsy. I'm not forgetful. I'm not the kind of person who mixes up basic numbers like a toddler learning to count. But somehow, for an entire year, 365 days of my pathetic existence, I've been shoving anonymous love letters into locker 217 instead of locker 271. And the alpha who's been receiving them? He just cornered me in the library, slammed his hand against the wall next to my head, and said with that stupidly attractive growl, "I don't accept apologies, only dates." So yeah, my life is basically a romantic comedy written by someone who hates me personally. Hey, welcome to Alpha and Flames. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story about how I accidentally romanced the wrong person for 12 months and somehow made it worse. My name is River, and before you ask, yes, my parents were hippies who thought naming their Omega son after a body of water was deeply meaningful. I'm 22, studying literature at Crescent Bay University, and up until 3 hours ago, I thought I was executing the most romantic long-game confession in the history of modern courtship. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. So catastrophically wrong that I'm currently hiding in the restricted section of the university library, wedged between medieval poetry and forgotten folklore, trying to figure out if I can legally change my identity and move to another country. Let me back up. 1 year ago, I developed the most ridiculous, heart-stopping, butterflies in stomach crush on an alpha named Adrian. Adrian with the silver eyes and the leather jacket and the way he'd lean against his locker every morning like he was auditioning for a motorcycle commercial. Adrian who smiled exactly twice a semester and made the entire Omega population weak in the knees. Adrian whose locker I was absolutely certain was number 217 because I'd watched him open it from across the hallway at least a dozen times. Except apparently I have the observational skills of a concussed goldfish because his locker? 271. 271. Which means for 12 solid months, I've been pouring my heart out in increasingly elaborate love letters and shoving them into the locker of someone completely different. Someone named Kai. Kai Mitchell, to be specific. The alpha everyone avoids because he's got this terrifying reputation for being cold, untouchable, and possibly capable of murder if you look at him wrong. Kai who towers over everyone at 6'3" with shoulders that could probably carry a car. Kai with the permanent scowl and the black everything and the aura of someone who'd rather set himself on fire than engage in human conversation. That Kai. The one currently stalking through the library looking for me like a very determined, very attractive predator. I can hear his footsteps. Steady. Patient. Getting closer. River. His voice cuts through the silence of the restricted section, low and smooth and doing absolutely illegal things to my blood pressure. I know you're here. Your scent gives you away. Of course it does. Because Omega biology is specifically designed to humiliate me at every possible opportunity. I press myself further into the shadows between the shelves, clutching a book about medieval courtship rituals like it's going to protect me from this situation. I'm not here, I call out, which is possibly the stupidest thing I've ever said, and I once accidentally called my professor Mom in front of the entire lecture hall. There's a pause. Then I hear something that sounds suspiciously like a laugh. Not a full laugh, more like a surprised huff of air, but from Kai Mitchell that might as well be a full comedy routine. Not there, he repeats, and I can hear the footsteps getting closer. Interesting strategy. Listen, in my defense, I've spent the last year believing I was courting Adrian. Sweet, gentle Adrian who worked at the campus bookstore and always smelled like old paper and vanilla. Adrian who I've watched from a distance, carefully crafting letters that quoted his favorite poets and referenced the obscure indie bands he listened to. Adrian who I've been slowly, painstakingly building a connection with through anonymous notes because I was too terrified to approach him directly. Except none of those letters went to Adrian. They all went to Kai. Every single one. Every carefully chosen quote from Neruda. Every hand-drawn doodle in the margins. Every confession about how his smile made me forget how to form coherent sentences. All of it received by the wrong person. The absolutely terrifying wrong person who is currently hunting me through the library like I'm prey. I peek around the shelf and immediately regret it because Kai is standing right there, and up close he's somehow even more overwhelming than usual. His dark hair falls into his eyes, which are this impossible shade of amber that seems to glow in the dim library lighting. He's wearing his usual black hoodie and jeans, but something about the way he's looking at me, intense and focused and almost hungry, makes my mouth go dry. "Found you," he says, and there's something in his voice that makes my omega instincts sit up and pay attention in a way that's both alarming and embarrassing. "This is a misunderstanding," I blurt out, holding the medieval courtship book up like a shield. "I can explain." "I don't want an explanation," Kai says, taking a step closer. "I want a date." My brain short-circuits. "What?" "You heard me." He's close enough now that I can smell him, cedar and something dark and warm that makes my head feel fuzzy. 1 year, River. 1 year of letters, of poetry and confessions, and you telling me about your day, about your dreams, about how you notice the small things, like the way morning light hits the campus fountain, or how the library smells different in autumn. Oh God. Oh no. I wrote all of that to him, thinking he was Adrian. That wasn't, I start, but he cuts me off. Wasn't what? Meant for me? His eyes narrow slightly. "I'm aware. You wrote my name wrong in exactly 3 letters. Called me Adrian. Called the person you were writing to Adrian." He pauses, and something flickers across his face. "But you still wrote them. You still put them in my locker. And I still read every single one." The restricted section suddenly feels very small and very warm. I can feel my face heating up, which is mortifying because I'm probably the color of a tomato right now. "I thought you were Adrian," I admit, because apparently honesty is my coping mechanism when cornered by attractive alphas in libraries. "I was watching Adrian. His locker. But I mixed up the numbers and I've been leaving letters in your locker instead, and I'm so sorry. This is so embarrassing. I'll stop immediately. Please forget this ever happened." The words tumble out in a rush and Kai just stands there, watching me with an expression I can't quite read. Then he does something I absolutely do not expect. He smiles. Not a big smile, not a happy smile, but a small, almost sad curve of his lips that somehow makes him look even more devastating. "I don't want you to stop," he says quietly. "I want a date. But I don't." I stop, because how do I finish that sentence? "I don't like you?" Except that's not true, is it? Because I've been writing to him. My words, my thoughts, my feelings. Even if I thought they were going to someone else, they were still mine. And he read them. He kept them. For a whole year. "You don't what?" Kai prompts, and he's closer now, close enough that I have to tilt my head back to look at him properly. "Don't want to go on a date with me? The person you've been writing to for 12 months. "I was writing to Adrian," I insist weakly. "You were writing to locker 217, Kai corrects. "Which is mine. Has been for 3 years. He reaches out slowly, carefully, like he's giving me time to move away, and tucks a strand of my hair behind my ear. The touch is gentle, almost reverent, and it sends shivers down my spine. "I don't care who you thought you were writing to, River. I care that you wrote those letters. That you shared parts of yourself. That for 1 year, I got to know you through your words. This is not how this was supposed to go. This was supposed to be horrifying, yes, but also brief. A quick apology, maybe some mutual awkwardness, and then we'd both move on with our lives and pretend this never happened. But Kai is looking at me like I matter. Like those letters mattered. Like I'm not just some stupid omega who can't tell the difference between 17 and 71. "One date," he says again, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "That's all I'm asking. Give me one chance to show you that maybe, just maybe, your letters found the right person after all." And because I'm apparently completely incapable of making good decisions, I hear myself say, "Okay. Let me take you back to where this disaster actually started, because to understand how spectacularly I've messed up my life, you need to know about the beginning. About the first letter. About the exact moment I looked at Adrian across the hallway and thought, yes, that's the one. That's the alpha who's going to make me do something incredibly stupid. It was September, first week of my junior year. I just transferred to Crescent Bay University from a smaller college across the state, which meant I knew exactly nobody and had the social skills of a nervous hamster. The campus was huge and overwhelming, all Gothic architecture and centuries of history, and I spent most of those first few days lost and trying not to make eye contact with anyone. Then I saw him, Adrian, standing by his locker, laughing at something his friend said, and the morning sunlight hit his silver hair in this way that made him look like something out of a painting. He had this gentle smile and kind eyes, and everything about him screamed safe, approachable, the kind of alpha who wouldn't make me feel small or scared or wrong. I was completely smitten within 30 seconds. My roommate, a beta named Marcus who'd taken pity on my disaster of a social life, noticed immediately. "That's Adrian Chun," he informed me, following my gaze. "Works at the bookstore, student librarian, writes poetry for the campus literary magazine. Also completely oblivious to the fact that half the Omegas on campus are in love with him." "I'm not in love with him," I protested, which was technically true because you can't fall in love with someone in 30 seconds. Lust? Definitely. Intense fascination? Absolutely. But love takes time. Marcus snorted. "Sure. And I'm not going to watch you pine dramatically from a distance for the next 3 months. He paused. "What's his locker number?" I'd been watching Adrian, being extremely not creepy about it, for the past week. 217, I said confidently. "I've seen him open it like a dozen times." "Bold of you to admit you've been stalking him." "I haven't been stalking. I've been observing. There's a difference." "There really isn't," Marcus said cheerfully. "So what's your plan? Going to actually talk to him? Or just continue your career as a professional lurker?" The problem was, I wasn't good at talking to alphas I liked. I got flustered and said stupid things and generally made a fool of myself. But writing I could do. Writing gave me time to think, to craft my words carefully, to be the eloquent romantic person I wished I could be in real life. "I'm going to write him a letter," I announced. Marcus looked at me like I'd suggested flying to the moon. "A letter. An actual physical letter. River, this is the 21st century. We have texting. Direct messages. Carrier pigeons would be less archaic. Letters are romantic," I argued. "They're personal, thoughtful. How many people actually get handwritten letters anymore? There's probably a reason for that." But I was determined. That night, I spent 3 hours drafting and redrafting the perfect first letter. Nothing too intense, nothing too revealing. Just a simple note letting Adrian know that someone had noticed him, that someone thought he was interesting, that someone wanted to get to know him better, even if it was anonymously for now. To the alpha with the silver eyes and the gentle smile. Asterisk, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll think I'm strange for writing it. But I saw you today in the morning light, and something in my chest went quiet and loud all at once. You looked like poetry, like the kind of verse that doesn't rhyme but still makes perfect sense. Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm not brave enough to say this to your face, so I'm leaving it here instead. In your locker. Like we're in some old story where people communicated through secret notes and stolen glances. Asterisk. Asterisk, maybe you'll think I'm ridiculous. Maybe you won't even read this. But I wanted you to know you've been noticed. And whoever you are beyond that gentle exterior, I'd like to know them too. Asterisk. Yours anonymously, someone who believes in the magic of noticing. It was cheesy. I knew it was cheesy. But it was also honest, and I folded it carefully into an envelope, wrote for the Alpha in locker 217 on the front, and spent the entire next morning working up the courage to actually leave it. The hallway was empty during third period. I checked 3 times to make sure no one was watching, then quickly opened the locker. I'd watched enough times to memorize the general area, and found the slot where the vents were. I slipped the letter through, heart pounding like I just committed a crime, and practically ran back to class. That night I couldn't sleep. What if he thought I was creepy? What if he showed all his friends and they laughed? What if he threw it away without reading it? I checked my phone obsessively, as if somehow he'd magically figure out who I was and message me, even though I'd been completely anonymous. But the next morning, when I saw Adrian at his locker, he was smiling. Not his usual polite smile, but something softer, more private. Like he had a secret, and I thought he read it. He actually read it and he liked it. I didn't know, couldn't have known, that the person smiling at my letter was someone completely different. That Adrian was smiling about something else entirely, maybe a text from a friend or a good grade or just the fact that it was a nice day. And that, in a different hallway, in front of a different locker, another alpha was carefully unfolding my words and reading them with an expression I would never see. The letters became a thing. My thing. Every week, sometimes twice a week, I'd write to the alpha I thought was Adrian. I'd tell him about my classes, about the books I was reading, about my observations of campus life. I kept it anonymous but personal, building what I thought was a connection through carefully chosen words. The library smells different in autumn, I wrote in October. Asterisk like old paper and cinnamon and the faint ghost of wood smoke from someone's jacket. I was studying in the third-floor alcove today, the one with the window that overlooks the quad, and I thought about how you might like it there. Quiet. Peaceful. The kind of place where you could read poetry without anyone interrupting. Asterisk. Asterisk, do you read poetry? I imagine you do. You have that look about you, like someone who appreciates beautiful things. Like someone who notices when the light changes or when a phrase turns clever. Asterisk. I'd watch Adrian at his locker the next day, trying to gauge his reaction, and I'd see him pause sometimes, smile sometimes, and I'd think, he's reading my letter. He's thinking about me. We're building something. Marcus thought I was insane. You've been doing this for 2 months, he pointed out in November, watching me draft another letter at my desk. Don't you think it's time to actually, talk to him? Reveal your identity. Do literally anything that doesn't involve being a mysterious pen pal. I will, I said. I just want to make sure there's something there first. Make sure he actually likes me, or at least likes the version of me in the letters. River. If he's been keeping your letters for 2 months, I'm pretty sure he likes you. But I wasn't ready. Because what if I revealed myself and he was disappointed? What if the real me, anxious and awkward and prone to saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, couldn't live up to the eloquent person in the letters? So I kept writing. Through November and December, through winter break and into January. I wrote about the first snow, about how the campus looked like something out of a fantasy novel when everything was covered in white. I wrote about my favorite coffee shop, about the barista who always drew little hearts in the foam. I wrote about my dreams of becoming a writer, about my fears that I wasn't good enough, talented enough, brave enough. And I thought Adrian was reading all of it. Thought he was getting to know me. Thought we were creating something real, even if it was happening through anonymous notes. February brought Valentine's Day, and I decided to be brave. Not brave enough to reveal myself, but brave enough to be more direct about my feelings. I think I'm falling for you, I wrote, my hand shaking slightly as I formed the words. Asterisk, or maybe I've already fallen, and I'm just now admitting it to myself. You've become part of my daily routine, part of how I see the world. I find myself noticing things just so I can tell you about them. Collecting moments like someone collects stamps or coins, except each moment is a potential letter, a potential connection between us. Asterisk. Asterisk, I know I'm anonymous. I know that makes this complicated. But I wanted you to know, whoever you are beyond what I can see from a distance, I'm interested. Completely, utterly interested. Asterisk. Asterisk, maybe someday I'll be brave enough to tell you this in person. To let you see my face when I talk about how your smile affects me. But for now, this is what I can offer, words on paper and the promise that they're true. Asterisk. I left that letter on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, because I'm apparently a sucker for romantic timing. And the next day, I watched Adrian at his locker, watched him pull out what I assumed was my letter, watched him read it with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. But he didn't smile. He looked confused, maybe a little uncomfortable, and my heart sank. Marcus found me hiding in our dorm room that evening. I saw Adrian earlier, he said carefully. He was asking around about secret admirers. Seemed genuinely confused about whether someone was leaving him notes. My blood ran cold. What? Yeah, he was asking some of his friends if they knew anything about anonymous letters in his locker. He seemed, like he genuinely didn't know what they were talking about. That didn't make sense. I'd been leaving letters for months. He had to have seen them. Unless he hadn't been getting them at all. Marcus? I said slowly, a horrible suspicion forming. What's Adrian's locker number? Marcus pulled out his phone, probably checking some campus directory or social media. Let me see. Chun? Adrian? Junior? English major. He scrolled. Locker 271. Why? The room tilted. 271. Not 217. 271. River? You okay? You look like you're going to pass out. I wasn't okay. I was the opposite of okay. Because for 5 months, I'd been pouring my heart out to the wrong person. Some random alpha in locker 217 who'd been receiving my letters and saying absolutely nothing. Not telling me I had the wrong locker, not returning them, not leaving a note to correct my mistake. Just taking them, reading them, keeping them. I need to go, I said, grabbing my jacket. Go where? River, it's 9 at night. But I was already out the door, practically running to the main academic building where the lockers were. The building was supposed to be locked after 8, but the security was notoriously lax, and I knew the side door near the science wing didn't close properly. I found locker 217 in the dim emergency lighting of the hallway. Stood there staring at it like it could give me answers. Who was in this locker? Who had been reading my letters? And why hadn't they said anything? I didn't have long to wonder because I heard footsteps. Heavy, purposeful footsteps that echoed in the empty hallway. And then a voice, low and smooth and belonging to someone I'd never actually spoken to. Looking for something? I spun around and there he was. Kai Mitchell, the terrifying alpha everyone avoided. Standing there in black jeans and a dark hoodie, hands in his pockets, looking at me with those intense amber eyes. I started, but my brain couldn't come up with a plausible excuse for why I'd be standing in front of his locker at 9 at night. Wondering who's been reading your letters? Kai finished and my heart stopped. That would be me. We stood there in the dark hallway, the emergency lights casting strange shadows, and I tried to process what he'd just said. He'd been reading my letters. Kai Mitchell, possibly the most intimidating alpha on campus, had been receiving my heartfelt confessions for 5 months. You knew, I said, and it came out as almost an accusation. You knew they weren't for you. Kai tilted his head slightly. I figured it out around the 3rd letter when you called me Adrian. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. But you kept leaving them. So I kept reading them. Why didn't you tell me? My voice was rising, embarrassment and anger mixing into something hot in my chest. Why didn't you leave a note or, I don't know, return them? Why did you let me keep writing to the wrong person? Because, Kai said, and he took a step closer, they were the best part of my day. I opened my mouth, closed it, had no idea what to say to that. Every week, sometimes twice a week, you'd leave a piece of yourself in my locker, he continued, his voice quiet but intense. You'd tell me things, real things, about your fears and your dreams and the way you see the world. And yeah, I knew you were writing to someone else. But those letters, those words, they were still yours. Still real. Still what? I whispered. Still the only time anyone's ever really tried to know me. The vulnerability in his voice was unexpected, and it took the wind out of my anger. I'd spent months thinking of Kai Mitchell as this untouchable, scary alpha. But standing here now, looking at him in the dim light, I realized I didn't actually know anything about him. Just rumors and assumptions and the reputation he'd somehow acquired. I should go, I said, because I didn't know what else to do with this information. River, he said my name like he'd been practicing it. Don't run from this. I'm not running. You wrote me a letter saying you were falling for me. I was falling for Adrian. But you wrote the words to me, Kai insisted, and there was something almost desperate in his voice now. Your words, your feelings, they came to me, and he stopped, ran a hand through his dark hair, looking frustrated and vulnerable and nothing like the cold alpha everyone whispered about. I know I'm not who you wanted. I know you were hoping for someone gentle and safe and everything I'm apparently not. But those letters meant something to me. You meant something. My heart was doing complicated things in my chest. Kai, I don't. One date, he said. That's all I'm asking. Give me one chance to show you who I actually am. Not the rumors or the reputation. Just me. The person who's been reading your letters and falling a little more every time. And because my life is apparently a series of terrible decisions, I found myself considering it. Actually considering going on a date with Kai Mitchell, the alpha I'd accidentally been romancing for 5 months while thinking he was someone completely different. I need to think about it, I said finally. Kai nodded, accepting this, but before I could leave he said, River? For what it's worth, I kept every letter. They're all in my room in a box under my bed. Every single one. That image, Kai carefully storing my letters like they were precious, did something to my heart that I wasn't ready to examine. I didn't sleep that night, or the next night. I spent the entire weekend in a state of emotional chaos, alternating between mortification that I'd been writing to the wrong person and a strange, fluttery feeling whenever I thought about Kai keeping my letters. Marcus, because he's the worst best friend in the history of friendship, thought the whole thing was hilarious. So let me get this straight, he said, sprawled across my bed while I paced our room. You've been secretly romancing the campus's most terrifying alpha for 5 months, completely by accident, and now he wants to date you. It's not funny. It's extremely funny. River, this is like a romantic comedy plot come to life. The only way this could be better is if you two got locked in an elevator together. I'm not dating him, I said firmly. I like Adrian. Sweet, gentle Adrian who works at the bookstore and writes poetry. Adrian who has no idea you exist. He will. Once I actually introduce myself properly and explain the whole locker mix-up. River, Marcus interrupted, suddenly serious. Have you actually talked to Adrian? Like at all? I paused. Well, no. But I've observed him extensively. That's not the reassuring statement you think it is. I'm going to talk to him, I insisted. I'll go to the bookstore tomorrow, strike up a conversation, see if there's actual chemistry beyond what I've been building in my head. Marcus gave me a long look. And what about Kai? What about him? The guy literally kept every letter you wrote. He asked you out. He's clearly interested. He's interested in the person in the letters, I corrected. Not the real me. The real me is awkward and anxious and says stupid things when nervous. Pretty sure the letters were the real you, River. Just the version that had time to edit. I didn't want to think about that. Didn't want to consider that maybe the person I'd been in those letters, thoughtful and observant and emotionally honest, was just as real as the anxious mess I usually was. Monday morning, I went to the campus bookstore with a determination I didn't quite feel. Adrian was there, as he always was during his morning shift, restocking the poetry section. He looked exactly how I remembered. Gentle silver eyes, soft smile, the kind of alpha who probably never raised his voice. Excuse me, I said, my voice only shaking a little. I was wondering if you had any Neruda collections? Adrian looked up and smiled, and my heart did a little flip. Neruda? Sure, we have a couple different translations. Are you looking for specific poems, or a complete collection? Whatever you'd recommend, I said, trying to sound casual and not like someone who'd been writing anonymous love letters for months. I'm taking a modern poetry class and wanted to read more of his work. Oh, you're taking Professor Williams's class? I took that last year. It's great. He led me to a shelf, pulled down 2 different books. This translation is more literal, preserves the original structure. This one takes more liberties but flows better in English. We talked about poetry for maybe 10 minutes. It was nice, comfortable. Adrian was knowledgeable and enthusiastic and exactly as kind as I'd imagined. But something was missing. There was no spark, no electric feeling, no sense that we were connecting on some deeper level. I bought the more literal translation and left feeling confused. Wasn't this what I wanted? A conversation with Adrian? The alpha I'd been crushing on for months? I was so distracted walking back to the dorm that I didn't notice someone following me until a hand caught my elbow. I spun around and came face to face with Kai. Bookstore? He asked, nodding at the bag in my hand. I was buying poetry, I said defensively, like he'd accused me of something. For Adrian? I blinked. What? No. For class. For me. Why would it be for Adrian? Kai's expression was unreadable. Saw you two talking. Thought maybe you were finally making your move. There was something in his voice, carefully neutral, that made me realize he was bothered by this. By me talking to Adrian. By the possibility that I might still be pursuing the alpha I'd originally intended to write to. It was just a conversation about poetry, I said, then added without thinking. It wasn't anything special. Something shifted in Kai's expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening. Good. Good. Yeah, he said, and his hand was still on my elbow, warm through my jacket. Because I've been waiting 3 days for an answer about that date, and watching you flirt with someone else wasn't exactly encouraging. I wasn't flirting. You bought poetry he recommended. For class. Kai's lips twitched, almost like he was trying not to smile. So is that a yes? I haven't said yes to anything. But you're not saying no. He stepped closer, and I was suddenly very aware that we were standing in the middle of the quad with people walking past. Definitely noticing that Kai Mitchell and a random Omega were having what looked like an intense conversation. River, give me one evening. If you hate it, if there's no chemistry, if I'm nothing like what you hoped, then I'll leave you alone. I'll stop asking. But give me one chance. I should have said no. Should have thanked him politely and explained that I wasn't interested. That the letters were a mistake. That I couldn't go on a date with someone I'd accidentally been romancing while thinking he was someone else. Instead, I heard myself say, one date, but I'm picking the location. Kai's whole face transformed. Not quite a smile, but something close, something warm that made him look years younger and significantly less terrifying. Deal. I immediately regretted agreeing to the date. What was I thinking? I didn't know Kai. I'd never had a real conversation with him. Yes, he'd read my letters, but that didn't mean we'd actually have anything to talk about in person. This was going to be a disaster. Marcus, unhelpfully, was thrilled. You're going on a date with Kai Mitchell. The Kai Mitchell. Do you know how many people would kill for this opportunity? Name one person. Every Omega who's ever seen him brood attractively in the library. He doesn't brood attractively. He just sits there looking angry. That's called brooding, River. And it's very attractive when you're 6'3" and built like you could bench press a car. I threw a pillow at him. I'm going to cancel. This is stupid. I'll just tell him I changed my mind. But I didn't cancel. Because every time I thought about it, I remembered how Kai had looked when he said I meant something to him. How vulnerable he'd seemed admitting that my letters were the best part of his day. How he'd kept every single one in a box under his bed. So when Friday rolled around, I found myself getting ready for a date I'd never planned on having with an alpha I'd never meant to romance. I chose what Marcus called my confused librarian outfit. Dark jeans, a soft sweater, my favorite worn jacket. Comfortable but not sloppy. Casual but not like I didn't care. Then I spent 20 minutes having an internal crisis about whether wearing my nice boots was trying too hard. You look fine, Marcus assured me, physically removing the fourth shirt I tried to switch to. Honestly, I think you could show up in pajamas and Kai would just be happy you came. That's not reassuring. That sounds like he's desperate. Or really into you. There was a knock on the door. My heart immediately tried to escape through my throat. Marcus opened it before I could panic further. And there was Kai, standing in our doorway looking unfairly attractive in dark jeans and a leather jacket over a simple black shirt. His hair was slightly less messy than usual, like he'd attempted to comb it, and he was holding a small box. Hey, he said, and his eyes found mine immediately. You ready? I'll take that as my cue to leave, Marcus announced cheerfully. Have fun, you two. River, remember to breathe. Kai, try not to be too intimidating. And if anyone needs me, I'll be at the library, not thinking about what you're doing. He practically skipped out of the room, leaving me alone with Kai for the first time since our conversation in the hallway. Kai stepped inside, closing the door behind him. You look nice. Thanks, I managed. You too. I mean, you look good. Fine. You look fine. His lips twitched. Relax, River. It's just me. That's what I'm worried about, I muttered before I could stop myself. But instead of looking offended, Kai actually smiled. A real one this time. Not just a slight curve, but an actual genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Here, he said, offering me the box. I brought you something. I took it carefully, lifted the lid, and went completely still. Inside were my letters. All of them. Every single one I'd written over the past 5 months, carefully organized by date. I thought you might want them back, Kai said quietly. Or at least want to know that I really did keep them. That they mattered. I picked up the first letter, the one I'd written in September about poetry and morning light. My handwriting looked nervous, the words slightly cramped. You kept them in order. Chronologically, he confirmed. I liked reading them in sequence, watching how your writing evolved, how you went from nervous and formal to more confident, more yourself. There was something unbearably intimate about this, about Kai having curated my words, organized them, treated them like they were precious. I carefully closed the box. Where are we going? I asked, needing to break the intensity of the moment. Kai's smile turned slightly mischievous. You said you were picking the location. Oh, right. In my panic about the date, I'd completely forgotten that I'd claimed that right. Coffee? There's a new place that opened downtown, Kai offered. If you want something more interesting than the campus cafe. Downtown sounds good. Kai drove, which gave me time to have a quiet panic attack in the passenger seat of his surprisingly normal car. I don't know what I expected, maybe something dark and intimidating to match his reputation, but he had a regular sedan with a tree-shaped air freshener and a coffee cup in the holder. Music preference? He asked, hand hovering over the radio. Whatever you want is fine. He gave me a look. River, I've been reading your thoughts for 5 months. I know for a fact you have opinions about music. Right? The letters, where I definitely mentioned my love of indie folk and my complicated relationship with pop music that was objectively terrible but somehow still got stuck in my head. No pop, I said. I'll judge you. Noted. He connected his phone to the car, and soft acoustic music filled the space. Something instrumental and calming that didn't require conversation. We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights starting to glow as evening approached. I snuck glances at Kai when I thought he wasn't looking, noticing small things I'd never paid attention to before. The way his fingers drummed absently against the steering wheel. The slight tension in his jaw like he was nervous too. The fact that he kept checking to make sure I was okay. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Anything. Why do people think you're so scary? Kai was quiet for a moment. Reputation, mostly. I got in a fight my first year, some alpha decided to test me. I defended myself, maybe more aggressively than necessary, and suddenly I was the dangerous one. After that, it was easier to let people think what they wanted than to try to change their minds. So you're not actually terrifying? He glanced at me, something playful in his expression. I can be terrifying when I need to be. Just not with you. My heart did that complicated thing again where it couldn't decide between fear and attraction. The coffee shop was small and warm, all exposed brick and mismatched furniture. We found a corner table away from the main crowd, ordered drinks that were probably too expensive for caffeinated beverages, and sat down facing each other. This was it. The actual date. Time to have a real conversation with the alpha I'd been accidentally romancing for months. So, I started, then immediately realized I had no idea what to say. Kai looked like he was trying not to laugh. You wrote me 37 letters totaling approximately 15,000 words, and now you can't think of anything to say? 37? You counted. I counted. He took a sip of his coffee. Want to know my favorite? Despite myself, I was curious. Which one? The one you wrote in December, about how snow makes everything quiet, how it feels like the world is taking a breath. He met my eyes. You wrote that you wished you could be like snow, peaceful and gentle instead of always anxious and loud in your own head. I remembered writing that. It had been a hard week, final stress and family pressure and the general overwhelming nature of existing. I'd written that letter at 2 in the morning, half asleep and completely honest. I related to it, Kai continued. That feeling of wanting to be something you're not. Something easier. You're confident and intimidating and everyone's terrified of you. What could you possibly want to be different? Approachable, he said simply. Trusted. Someone people want to know instead of avoid. I'd never thought about it that way. That Kai's reputation might be as much a prison as a protection. That behind the scary exterior, he might be just as uncertain as I was. I'm not terrified of you, I said quietly. I know. His eyes were warm. That's what made your letters so special. You saw me, even when you didn't know you were seeing me. You wrote to what you thought was Adrian, but your words, your observations, they were about noticing the real things. The important things. Like what? Like how kindness matters more than confidence. How paying attention is an act of love. How the small moments, the quiet ones, those are what make life meaningful. He paused. Those are the things I believe too. The things I think matter. And reading your letters, knowing someone else saw the world that way, it meant everything. I didn't know what to say to that. How do you respond to someone telling you that your words, your private thoughts, gave them hope? Your turn, Kai said. Ask me anything. Anything? I've been reading your secrets for 5 months. It's only fair. So I asked. About his family, his major, why he transferred to Crescent Bay. About his favorite books and his secret love of terrible action movies and the fact that he volunteered at an animal shelter every Saturday. And he answered, open and honest, like we'd known each other for years instead of sitting together properly for the first time. We talked through 2 coffees each. Through the evening rush and into the quieter nighttime crowd. About everything and nothing, big philosophical questions and stupid funny stories. And somewhere in the middle of it, I realized I was having fun. More than fun. I was connecting with someone in a way I hadn't in a long time. I should probably take you back, Kai said eventually, checking his phone. It's past 10. I blinked, surprised. It had been 3 hours and it felt like 20 minutes. We drove back to campus in comfortable silence, the same soft music playing. But this time when I glanced at Kai, he caught me looking and smiled. He walked me to my dorm, even though I insisted it wasn't necessary. We stood outside the entrance, the campus quiet around us, and I realized I didn't want the evening to end. Thank you, I said, for tonight, for the coffee, for being honest with me. Thank you for giving me a chance. Kai stepped closer, and my breath caught. Can I see you again? I should have said I needed time to think. Should have played it cool, not acted too eager. Instead I said, yes. Kai's smile was worth every ounce of my dignity. Good, because I have a lot more questions about those letters. He left before I could respond, and I floated up to my room in a daze. Marcus took one look at me and groaned. Oh no, you like him. I don't. River, you're glowing. Literally glowing. You look like someone just handed you a puppy and a publishing contract. Collapsed on my bed. I like him. I knew it. But I'm not supposed to like him. I'm supposed to like Adrian. Sweet, gentle Adrian who's everything Kai isn't. Marcus sat down next to me. Maybe Kai is everything you actually need instead of everything you thought you wanted. And the worst part? He might have been right. The second date happened 3 days later. Then a third date. Then study sessions that turned into coffee runs that turned into long walks around campus. Within 2 weeks, Kai had somehow become a constant presence in my life, and I couldn't figure out how it happened so fast. Marcus called it the letter effect. You two already did the getting to know you stage, he explained. You just did it backwards, through anonymous letters. Now you're just catching up in person. Maybe he was right, because being with Kai felt easy in a way I never expected. He remembered things I mentioned, asked follow-up questions, paid attention to the small details. He walked me to class even though his classes were on the other side of campus. He brought me coffee on mornings he knew I'd been up late studying. He texted me random observations during the day, continuing the same kind of noticing that my letters had started. Asterisk, the fountain is frozen today. Looks like glass. You'd like it. Asterisk. Asterisk found a first edition of your favorite poet in the bookstore. Made me think of you. Asterisk. Asterisk Marcus says you're stressed about your paper. Want to study together. Asterisk. It was perfect. Almost too perfect. Which is why the universe decided to complicate things. I was in the library, researching for my modern poetry paper, when someone sat down across from me. I looked up and my heart stopped because it was Adrian. Silver-haired, gentle-smiled Adrian, who I'd been crushing on for months before accidentally romancing someone else. River, right? He said, and I was surprised he knew my name. We talked about Neruda a couple weeks ago? Yeah, I managed. Hi. I've been meaning to find you. I found something I thought you'd like. He pulled a book from his bag, a slim volume of translations. It's out of print, but I found a copy at a used bookstore downtown. Thought you might want it for your paper. It was thoughtful, sweet, exactly the kind of gesture I'd imagined Adrian making back when I was writing letters to his locker. Except I wasn't writing those letters anymore. And the butterflies I used to feel looking at Adrian were conspicuously absent. That's really kind, I said, taking the book carefully. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Adrian smiled, and it was a nice smile, warm and genuine. Actually, I was wondering if you'd want to study together sometime? I'm taking a poetry seminar next semester and could use someone to discuss authors with. My brain short-circuited. Was Adrian asking me out, or just suggesting a study session? And why did I feel panicked instead of excited? I started, but was interrupted by a familiar presence. Kai appeared next to our table holding 2 coffee cups. Got your usual, he said to me. Then noticed Adrian and his expression went carefully neutral. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. You're not interrupting, Adrian said quickly, standing up. I was just lending River a book. You must be Kai? I've seen you around campus. Adrian, Kai acknowledged, and there was something in his voice I couldn't quite identify. Not hostile, but not exactly friendly either. Adrian looked between us, something calculating in his expression. Are you two? Dating, Kai said firmly. At the same time I said, it's complicated. We looked at each other. Kai's expression was unreadable, but I saw tension in his shoulders. Adrian's eyes flickered between us again. Well, I'll let you two talk. River, the offer stands if you want to study together. He nodded at Kai. Nice meeting you. He left, and suddenly the library felt very quiet and very tense. It's complicated? Kai repeated, setting my coffee down with a little more force than necessary. I didn't know what to say. You could have said yes. We are dating. We've been on 3 dates. I've been walking you to class, bringing you coffee, texting you all day. What exactly is complicated about that? He was right, and I knew he was right, but something about the way he said it made me defensive. We've been seeing each other for 2 weeks, Kai. That's hardly relationship territory. Then what is this? What have we been doing? I don't know. Getting to know each other? Figuring things out. I already know you, Kai said, voice dropping dangerously low. I've known you for 5 months. Every fear, every dream, every private thought you shared in those letters. I know you prefer coffee to tea, but will drink tea if someone makes it for you because you don't want to be rude. I know you bite your lip when you're concentrating and that you hum when you think no one's listening. I know you, River. The question is, do you want to know me? That's not fair. What's not fair is watching you hesitate when someone asks if we're together. What's not fair is seeing you look at Adrian like maybe you're still hoping for something there. I'm not. Aren't you? Kai's eyes were intense, almost painful in their honesty. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're keeping your options open. Like maybe I'm just the consolation prize while you figure out if you can get what you actually wanted. The accusation stung partially because there might have been some truth to it. I had been thinking about Adrian, wondering what might have happened if those letters had gone to the right locker. If I'd built that connection with the person I originally intended. I need time, I said quietly, to figure out what I want. Kai looked at me for a long moment, and I watched something close off in his expression. Take all the time you need. But I'm not going to wait around while you decide if I'm worth choosing. He turned and left, and I sat there surrounded by poetry books and the rapidly cooling coffee he'd brought me, wondering how I'd managed to mess this up so spectacularly. Marcus found me still in the library an hour later, staring blankly at my research notes. He took one look at my face and sighed. What happened? I told him everything. About Adrian showing up, about Kai overhearing, about the fight we'd had, about what exactly we were doing. So let me get this straight, Marcus said when I finished. Kai, who has been nothing but amazing to you, who kept all your letters like they were precious, who's been attentive and thoughtful and clearly crazy about you, told you he wants a real relationship. And you said it's complicated. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. That's because it is bad, River. Marcus sat down heavily. What are you doing? I don't know. I'm confused. About what? About whether you like Kai. Because from where I've been standing for the past 2 weeks, you've been happier than I've ever seen you. But what if I only like him because I've been writing to him? What if it's not real? What if it is real and you're self-sabotaging because you're scared? Marcus countered. You wrote those letters, River. Your words, your feelings, your observations. They went to Kai, and he responded to them. He fell for the real you, just expressed through writing instead of talking. Why is that less valid than any other way of connecting? I didn't have an answer. And Adrian, Marcus continued. Sweet, gentle Adrian, who you've been pining over for months. Did you feel butterflies when he sat down? Did your heart race? Did you feel that spark you've been chasing? I thought about it. Honestly thought about it. And realized that no, I hadn't felt any of those things. I felt pleasant surprise, mild flattery, but nothing like the electric feeling I got every time Kai texted me or the way my pulse jumped when I saw him walking across campus. Oh God, I said. I'm an idiot. Yes, but you're a fixable idiot. Go apologize to Kai. What if he won't talk to me? Then you grovel. You wrote him 37 letters, River. I think you can manage one apology. I found Kai at his usual spot in the campus gym, working out like he was trying to punch his feelings into submission. He saw me approaching and his expression went carefully blank. River, can we talk? I thought you needed time. I did. But I need to say something first. I took a deep breath, ignoring the few other people in the gym who were definitely listening. You were right. About all of it. I was being unfair and scared and probably self-sabotaging because something good was happening and I couldn't quite believe it. Kai stopped, turned to face me fully, waiting. I did write those letters thinking they were going to Adrian, I continued. And when I found out they'd been going to you instead, I felt embarrassed and confused. But Kai, these past 2 weeks, getting to know you in person, it's been amazing. You're amazing. And I think I've been so caught up in who I thought I should want that I didn't let myself see who I actually want. And who do you want? His voice was carefully neutral, but I saw hope in his eyes. You, I said, and saying it out loud made it true, made it real. I want you. Not because you got my letters by accident, but because of who you are. Because you're thoughtful and kind and you notice things. Because you make me laugh and challenge me and make me want to be braver. Kai closed the distance between us in 2 strides, cupping my face in his hands. Say it again. I want you. Again. I want to be with you, Kai. Officially. No complications. He kissed me. Right there in the middle of the campus gym with people watching and my face turning red and his hands gentle on my face like I was something precious. And it felt right in a way that made all my doubts seem ridiculous in retrospect. You're stuck with me now, he murmured against my lips. I don't care if 37 more letters show up in the wrong locker. You're mine. Possessive much? You wrote to me for 5 months. I think I've earned the right to be possessive. Fair point. Things were perfect for exactly 4 days. 4 blissful days of being official with Kai, of hand-holding and coffee dates and the kind of new relationship energy that makes everyone around you want to throw things. Then Adrian showed up at my dorm room looking concerned and carrying a familiar box. River, I need to talk to you about something weird that's been happening. I let him in, confused, and Marcus immediately made himself scarce with a pointed look that said, "This is going to be dramatic." "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Adrian set the box on my desk, and my stomach dropped when I recognized it. It was my box of letters, the ones Kai had returned to me on our first date. "Someone's been leaving letters in my locker," Adrian said. "They started appearing about a week ago. Beautiful letters, really thoughtful and personal. At first I thought it was a secret admirer thing, but then he pulled out one of the letters, and I recognized my handwriting immediately. Then I realized they were dated from months ago, and they mentioned things that haven't happened yet, like they were written in the past but delivered now." "Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Adrian," I started, but he was still talking. I asked around, trying to figure out who might have sent them, and someone mentioned they'd seen Kai Mitchell carrying a box that looked like this. So I went to talk to him, asked if he knew anything about letters showing up in my locker. Adrian's expression was troubled. He seemed really surprised. Said the letters were yours, that you'd written them, but they'd been going to his locker by mistake. "Is that true?" "Couldn't lie. Not with the evidence literally sitting on my desk." "Yeah, it's true. So you wrote me love letters for 5 months, but they went to the wrong locker, and Kai was the one reading them?" "That's essentially what happened, yes." Adrian sat down heavily on Marcus's bed. "And now you're dating him." It sounded bad when he said it like that, like I was the kind of person who fell for whoever showed interest rather than having actual preferences. "It's more complicated than that," I said. "I thought I liked you. I watched you from a distance and built up this idea of who you were. But when I actually talked to you, when we had that conversation about poetry, I realized there wasn't the connection I'd imagined. But there was a connection with Kai. Yes, because he read my actual words, my real thoughts, and responded to them. We connected through honesty, even if it was accidental at first." Adrian was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then he said, "The letters that are showing up in my locker now, they're beautiful, River. Really beautiful. And reading them, knowing they were written for me originally, it made me wonder what might have happened if I'd actually received them when you wrote them." My chest tightened. "Adrian, I know you're with Kai now," he continued, "and I'm not trying to mess that up, but I wanted you to know that if things had been different, if those letters had found their way to me first, I would have been interested. I am interested." This was the universe's idea of a joke. For months I'd wanted Adrian to notice me, to show interest, to give me any sign that he might feel the same way. And now, when I'd finally moved on, when I'd found something real with Kai, here he was telling me he liked me. "I appreciate you telling me," I said carefully, "but I'm with Kai, and I'm happy." "Are you?" Adrian's eyes were searching. "Or are you just making the best of an accidental situation?" Before I could answer, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Kai standing there, and from his expression, he'd heard at least part of the conversation. "Adrian," he said, voice carefully controlled. "Leaving letters in your locker now? That's an interesting strategy." "I'm not leaving them," Adrian said, standing up. "Someone else is. I thought maybe it was River trying to correct the original mistake." "It's not me," I said quickly. "I have no idea who's putting my old letters in your locker." Kai's eyes narrowed. "Someone has access to letters that should be private. Letters that were between River and me. They're not exactly private if they were meant for me originally," Adrian pointed out, and I saw Kai's jaw clench. "They stopped being meant for you the moment River and I started actually building something real. Based on letters that were supposed to go to someone else. Based on River's actual words and feelings, which they chose to share with me every single day for 5 months. They were squaring off now, 2 alphas in my tiny dorm room, and I could feel the tension rising." "Stop," I said, stepping between them. "Both of you stop. Adrian, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, but I'm with Kai. Those letters were written months ago when I didn't know either of you. They don't represent how I feel now." "And how do you feel now?" Adrian asked. I looked at Kai, at his tense shoulders and the worry in his eyes that he was trying to hide behind anger. "I feel like I found something unexpected and real, and I'm not interested in exploring What ifs with someone else? Adrian nodded slowly, accepting this. Okay, I respect that. But River, if you ever change your mind. She won't, Kai said firmly. He won't, I corrected, because apparently even in dramatic moments, pronouns matter. Adrian, you're a good person. And in another universe, maybe things would have worked out between us. But in this one, I'm choosing Kai. After Adrian left, Kai pulled me into his arms. Someone's been going through my things, he said quietly. The letters were in a box under my bed. Only someone with access to my room could have taken them. Who has access to your room? My roommate. And Kai's expression darkened. And my ex. Kai's ex was named Derek, and according to Marcus's comprehensive campus gossip network, he and Kai had dated briefly last year before a spectacularly messy breakup involving jealousy, accusations, and Derek getting removed from Kai's dorm building for harassment. He's been trying to get back together with Kai for months, Marcus informed me, pulling up Derek's social media, and he's not exactly stable about it. The evidence certainly suggested Derek was behind the letters appearing in Adrian's locker. He'd have access to Kai's room through their mutual friends. He'd have motive to cause problems in our relationship. And according to several people Marcus had interrogated, he'd been seen hanging around the locker hallways more than usual. I'll talk to him, Kai said grimly when I shared this information. Tell him to back off. Is that safe? If he's unstable, I can handle Derek. But there was tension in Kai's voice that worried me. The confrontation happened 2 days later in the campus center. And I only knew about it because someone texted Marcus, who immediately dragged me there to make sure your boyfriend doesn't commit murder. We arrived to find Kai and Derek facing off near the coffee shop. A small crowd gathering because apparently drama is everyone's favorite spectator sport. Trying to ruin what I have with River. Kai was saying, voice low and dangerous. And you need to stop. I'm not doing anything, Derek said. But his smile was wrong. Too sharp. Too pleased. If your little Omega is getting confused about who he actually wants, that's not my problem. You went through my personal belongings. You stole private letters and redistributed them to cause exactly this kind of confusion. Prove it. Derek's smile widened. Besides, maybe River deserves to know what he's getting into. Dating you, everyone knows how that worked out for me. We broke up because you were controlling and jealous. I was protective. There's a difference. You followed me. You demanded to know where I was every minute. You went through my phone. Because I loved you. Derek's voice rose, drawing more attention. Because I cared enough to make sure you weren't hiding things from me. That's not love, I said, stepping forward despite Marcus trying to hold me back. That's obsession. Derek's eyes focused on me, and I immediately regretted speaking. And you think you're any different? You wrote Kai love letters for months without even knowing it was him. You were obsessing over someone else and he just happened to receive the overflow. That's not, isn't it? Derek looked between us. You were in love with the idea of someone. Kai just happened to be convenient. And now you're playing house? Pretending this accidental relationship is real. It is real, Kai said, moving to stand next to me. His hand found mine warm and grounding. River chose me, keeps choosing me, every day. For now, Derek said. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize you settled for the wrong person? I squeezed Kai's hand, felt him squeeze back. I didn't settle, and I'm not confused. You want me to doubt this relationship because it bothers you that Kai's happy with someone else. But here's the thing, Derek. I don't care what you think. I don't care about your opinion on how we got together. I care about Kai, about what we're building, and you're not going to mess that up. Derek's expression twisted into something ugly. You'll regret this. Both of you. Is that a threat? Kai's voice dropped dangerously low. It's a promise. Derek stepped closer. You think you're so happy now? Wait until everyone knows the truth. Wait until River's perfect fantasy falls apart. Enough, a new voice said, and we all turned to see campus security approaching. Derek, we've had reports of you harassing students. You need to come with us. It turned out several people had filed complaints about Derek's behavior over the past few weeks. The letters in Adrian's locker were just the latest in a series of increasingly concerning actions. Campus security escorted him away, and Kai and I were left standing in the campus center with everyone staring at us. "So," Marcus said cheerfully, appearing at my elbow, "that was dramatic. Should we get coffee and debrief? Or are you two going to make out right here to assert your relationship dominance?" Kai actually laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Coffee sounds good." The rest of the semester passed in a kind of blissful normalcy that I'd never experienced before. Kai and I fell into an easy routine of classes, study dates, and the kind of comfortable togetherness that made me wonder how I'd ever thought I wanted anything different. Adrian and I reached an understanding. We were friendly when we saw each other, could have pleasant conversations about poetry, but the awkwardness of the letter situation faded into the background. He started dating a sweet beta from his poetry seminar, and I was genuinely happy for him. Derek got expelled from campus housing and was banned from university buildings after campus security discovered he'd been involved in several other harassment cases. Kai seemed relieved more than vindictive about it. "I don't like knowing he's still out there," he admitted one evening as we studied in the library. "But at least he can't hurt anyone else here." I leaned against his shoulder, comforted by his solid presence. "You know what I realized? If those letters had gone to the right locker, if I'd been writing to Adrian all along, we never would have happened. And that would have been such a waste." Kai smiled, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "Best accidental romance of my life. Only accidental romance of your life, I hope. Only romance of my life, period." It was a bold statement for someone I'd only been officially dating for 2 months. But somehow it didn't scare me. Felt right, actually. Like we'd skipped past all the uncertainty and doubt and landed directly in something solid. Marcus naturally had opinions about this. "You two are disgustingly cute," he announced one evening when Kai came over for movie night. "Like actually offensive levels of adorable. I can't deal with it." "You're just jealous," I said, throwing popcorn at him. "I'm absolutely jealous. Where's my accidental romance? Where's my secret admirer situation?" "Maybe you should start leaving anonymous letters in random lockers," Kai suggested dryly. "Seems to work." We all laughed, and I felt something warm settle in my chest. This was what I wanted. Not the fantasy I'd built up about Adrian. Not some perfect romance from a novel, but this messy, real, wonderful thing I'd stumbled into by accident. That night, after Marcus had fallen asleep during the second movie and Kai was getting ready to leave, he pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his bag. It was a letter, a real handwritten letter in an envelope with my name on it. "You wrote me a letter?" I asked, surprised and delighted. "Seemed only fair. You wrote me 37. Figured I should return the favor." I opened it carefully, and Kai's neat handwriting filled the page. "River, I'm not good with words the way you are. I can't make poetry out of ordinary moments or find beauty in mundane things. But I wanted to try, wanted to give you something back after you gave me so much through your letters. These past months with you have been the happiest of my life. Not because everything's been perfect, we've had our fights and doubts and complications, but because even in the messy parts I've felt seen, understood, like I matter to someone beyond my reputation or what people assume about me. You did that. Your letters first when you were still writing to the wrong person, and then you in person when you chose to give us a real chance. I don't know if there's such a thing as fate or destiny or if we just got impossibly lucky with your terrible locker number skills. But I'm grateful for it either way. Grateful that your words found me. Grateful that you found me. I love you, River. Have loved you since the third letter when you wrote about wanting to be like snow, peaceful and gentle. Have loved you through every word you've shared, every conversation we've had, every moment you've chosen me. So thank you. For the letters, for the chance, for being exactly who you are. Yours always, Kai. I read it twice, then a third time, feeling tears prick at my eyes. You love me. I do. He said it simple and sure, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I love you too, I said. And kissing him there in my dorm room doorway with Marcus snoring in the background felt like the best ending to this ridiculous, messy, perfect story. 6 months later, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, the one Kai had taken me to on our first date, working on my senior thesis about epistolary poetry. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed with a text from Kai. Check your locker. I frowned. I hadn't used my campus locker in months, usually just carried everything in my bag. But curiosity got the better of me, so I packed up my laptop and headed to the academic building. Locker 217, Kai's old locker that had accidentally become part of our story, now had something taped to it. A letter, addressed to me in Kai's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands, already smiling. River, remember when you asked me what I believed in? Beyond the reputation and the walls I'd built up? I didn't have a good answer then, but I do now. I believe in accidents that turn into fate. I believe in words that find the right person even when they're sent to the wrong address. I believe in omegas who are brave enough to write their feelings down, and alphas who are lucky enough to receive them. Most of all, I believe in us. In what we've built from a mistake. In what we're still building every day. Meet me at the fountain? I have something to ask you. My heart was pounding as I ran to the central fountain. The one I'd written about in my very first letter. The one where morning light hit the water just right. Kai was there, standing in that same spot where I used to watch Adrian from a distance all those months ago. But I wasn't watching from a distance anymore. I was running toward him, letter clutched in my hand, and he was smiling that rare, genuine smile that still made my heart skip. Hi, I said breathlessly when I reached him. Hi. He took my hands in his. So I've been thinking. Dangerous activity. He huffed a laugh. Shut up. I'm trying to be romantic. He took a breath. A year ago, you started writing letters to the wrong locker, and it changed my entire life. Made me believe that good things could happen by accident. That maybe I wasn't as unlovable as I thought. Kai, let me finish. His thumbs rubbed circles on my hands. You taught me that love doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be planned or perfect or follow any kind of logical path. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it finds you when you're not looking. Is this going where I think it's going? My voice came out squeaky. Depends on where you think it's going. Kai reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Not a ring box, thank God, because we were still in college and I wasn't ready for that level of commitment. But a box nonetheless. Inside was a key. I'm getting an apartment next year, Kai said. Off campus. 2-bedroom so Marcus can have his own space if he wants it. I was hoping you'd move in with me. With us. Make it official. You want me to move in with you? I want to wake up next to you every day. I want to come home to you. I want to build a life with you, River. Starting with an apartment and who knows where it goes from there. I looked at the key, at Kai's hopeful face, at the fountain where I'd spent so many mornings watching the wrong person. Yes, I said. Obviously yes. Kai kissed me there in front of the fountain, and I tasted forever on his lips. Marcus, when we told him later, just rolled his eyes. Finally, I've been third-wheeling for months. Having my own room will be a blessing. You love us, I said. I tolerate you. There's a difference. But he was grinning, and I knew he was happy for us. That night, I wrote one more letter. Not to leave in a locker, but to keep in my journal. A record of how sometimes the wrong address leads to the right person. How mistakes can become miracles. How love can find you in the most unexpected ways. Dear future me, remember that time you put letters in the wrong locker for an entire year? Remember how mortifying it was when you found out? How you wanted to disappear from embarrassment? Thank God you made that mistake. Thank God your spatial awareness is terrible and your number recognition skills are questionable. Thank God you sent your words to Kai instead of Adrian. Because Kai was the one who needed them. who treasured them, who fell in love with the person behind them. Asterisk. And you fell in love right back. Asterisk. So here's to wrong lockers and right people. To accidents that feel like fate. To love letters that find their mark even when the address is wrong. Asterisk. Here's to us. Always, River. I closed the journal and looked over at Kai, who'd fallen asleep on my bed with a textbook on his chest. His dark hair was messy, his face peaceful, and something in my chest went soft and warm. I'm keeping you, I whispered, even though he couldn't hear me. But maybe, in some way, he already knew. Well, there you have it. The most ridiculous, complicated, accidentally perfect love story of my life. If you enjoyed watching me catastrophically mess up my way into a relationship, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about disasters with happy endings. Drop a comment and let me know, have you ever sent something to the wrong person? Did it work out as well as this did? Or do I just have impossibly good luck? Either way, thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes the wrong address leads you exactly where you need to be. Until next time, keep finding love in unexpected places.